All right, we is live. Let's go with this guy. I like this one.
No turning back tonight. Started from the ground, felt my knees to the floor. Dreams kept calling, but doubt knocked at my door. Lost a few battles, but my spirit stayed awake. A vision in my mind, and I won't let it break. Pressure all around, but I rise through the noise. Learning how to move, discipline is my choice. Every setback, fuel from my drive. I'm reaching higher, this is my time. No more shadows, no more running. Every moment I'm becoming. I see the road unfolding. Courage in my soul is growing. No, no excuses. I'm moving forward. I got the vision. Now I need the courage. No excuses. I'm moving forward. Locked on my purpose. Refusing to surrender. No excuses. I'm moving forward, baby.
All right, fam, what's going on here? What's going on? Welcome to the Pivot Play podcast. I am Jerry A. Thompson, and we have a special guest host tonight. But before we get to that, just giving some folks a minute to get in here. I know how you guys are with time, but it's okay. I know some people will be catching the replay, and that's also fine. So before we jump into this, there's so much going on, but I want to share a couple things with you. And I usually forget to do these things. I'm usually so concerned about the information, but we have a few things going on, so I need you guys to be aware of them. So if you have seen, I've been talking about um, a platform called Alter Daily. And this is one that Optivist has worked on and built out, and it's one that we really think just needs to be out there. And what this platform does is it's really talking about connection, meaning your spiritual connection, and then it's also talking about community, because in times like this, we obviously need one another. We need support. And what I really like about the community side of this is, like, like if I come on the Facebook, I have a few thousand followers, and I can put out the simplest message, and then algorithms and all that are deciding whether or not it gets seen. So in that safe space, we don't have that constraint. And again, the connectiveness piece is, so let's say you're having a challenging day, and you want prayer and there's nobody around. So you can kind of say what your issue is, put it in there, and it's going to give you a response. It also give you reflections on a daily basis. And so if you can go to alterdaily.com, it is free. And then in the next week or so, there will be a paywall on it, but we're talking like $1.99, right? Just so we can keep the platform going. But the people who've been using it now for a while have just have phenomenal responses to it. And then the next iteration of it will allow it to support, organizations, if you will. So if people have, a group that they get together, I don't care if it's a book club or Bible study or whatever, there'll be ways to sort of, create, the official word is a tenant, but an area where you all can kind of do your thing. And it's a way to keep the outreach and the connectivity going. So if there's a lot there, check out Alter Daily. And then another one that I want to bring to your attention is a platform called Oral Guardian. And this one is 100% free. And well, the best way for me to describe it, because I don't want to use like big terms like, the time value of money and things like that, but it really helps you understand what the impact of your financial decisions, whether you're going to purchase something one time, whether you're going to, do something that's going to be recurring, as in a new bill that you're going to see on a monthly basis. That's whether or not you're joining this gym, or whatever that might be. So it just gives you the opportunity to see what that money could become if you were to invest it instead of just spending it. So again, some of those one-time purchases and those recurring costs that we pick up. And the beauty of it is it will give you sort of an estimate of what that could become, using sort of accepted rates of return across 9 different investment categories. So that's www.oralguardian.com. It is 100% free. And on top of that, there's some other useful articles. Some of those articles may or may not be the basis of one of my upcoming books, called The Live Free Financial Blueprint. So that was out there because I want people to kind of know, so you have the opportunity to understand, is I can have this thing, or in 5 years I could have this, in 10 years I could have that, in 20 years I could have that. Right now, I'm getting a lot of calls from people right now, and my best answer is, I wish we had a time machine, because everything I'm going to say to you, you probably should have started 20 years ago. So we're on that point. And let me get to the next one. Again, I just don't think to do this stuff. Most of you know, I wrote this book called Principles of the Live Free Lifestyle. It has been received phenomenally. Um, if you go out on Amazon, which is where it's located, right? If you order it, if you're most parts of the country, you're going to get it in a day or two. But check out the reviews; it's been very well received. I'm not going to say a ton about it, but it's out there, and I think it's really really good stuff. It's 21 principles, sort of things that I have built and based my life on. And then lastly, because again, things I forget is, if you go to livefreeinspirations.com, then you can get the gear, right? Some of you have seen it, the mugs, the sweatshirts, the t-shirts. The hoodies are really amazing. Where I am right now, I don't really need one down here, but we have that. Okay, so we did all the housekeeping, so no one has to yell at me about that. And now what I want to do is bring in our guest host for the evening. And Ken, I just want to make sure I hit all the right magic buttons, because I'm not just, part of the show. I'm also the producer. Have to do a little bit of everything. How
Which
you
you're the
doing,
hair
my
club
brother?
member, you're the hair
I,
club member, and
and the president.
I'm doing well, bro. You know, I've been through a lot today. We've been traveling for days, but
Hmm.
I'm super excited we got this together, and I got here in time to get it together. So this is exciting.
I know, right? We had like really like no real pre-show. Like, you got here like just a few minutes ago. People need to understand that. Not that I think it's going to matter. I still think we're going to have a phenomenal conversation. And I could see, at least from the Facebook side, that my sister is on. I can't see from the YouTube side who's on just yet. But anyway, so all right, so this is why I'm supposed to hand it over to you. I'm just going to say, in my experience, I just, might want to tell people who you are, and like how you came to be, looking at me across the
Oh
screen
yeah.
right now.
Trust me, I had a lot of time to think about this. So Ken Gladney, vocationally, I am a executive director for one of the largest asset and private wealth managers in the world. Um, and also by vocation, I'm a full-time pastor as well. And my friends at the church call me Dr. Gladney. So a lot of things that fall under the belt. But I think what's most important is you and I.
Hmm.
We met haphazardly. Naja Nicole
Right.
and her dad. I did some work with Naja, and she had a
Hmm.
show coming up at the Queen. You were producing it. We had our homie on bass, and I was drum. So I think this is kind of when you reach out to a lot of people saying, "Hey, I got this idea." I'm like, I'm on it, because I think what we forget as musicians, you're not just someone that's musically talented as you are, but there's other attributes in Jerry that makes
Right.
Jerry who he is.
Hmm.
And I had this in my notes because I want to make sure we explore that, because people say he reinvented himself. When you reinvent something, you change the chemical structure. You've never reinvented yourself. You
Right.
added and enhanced who Jerry Thompson was.
Right.
Then over the years, we found out, wait, Rob Parker, the connections there, like all these connections that
Yeah,
we
my
didn't know
brother.
existed, right? So all this stuff, but musically, but also then over the years you studied finance, right? You got your licenses. You were computer background. I remember one of the sessions you had, brother was talking about. You said you went to a pub or somewhere, and the bartender said, "Hey, I'm going to go check out my real estate portfolio." You're like, "Wait, I don't have a portfolio." So all these things are not me reinventing myself; it's me
Right.
enhancing who I am. And I think,
Right.
and I'm being more about the Black community, we don't always have connections that remind us you can do this. The song you played in the beginning, it said, I need the courage, no excuses, I'm moving forward. And we
Hmm.
kind of get stuck on those things about crap. I don't have this. You went back
Right.
to school, got it, right? Why don't you go
Hmm.
back and do this? Find a way to get it done. All these things, I need the courage to move forward. I can't make excuses. And then I got to keep moving forward. Forward is a motion that I generate, right? And I think what we're going to go into for the rest of this time would be what's moved Jerry forward, the pitfalls. And I know we didn't have it in our notes, but I want to make sure we talk about it because I think as Black folks, we tend to get that imposter syndrome a lot, right? I'm in the room. If I'm in the room, I got myself here,
Right.
whether it's my prayer, my family, my network, but I got here, I earned the seat. I'm going to make sure I make an impact because we will
Yeah.
figure out how to make chitlins or pork or pig feet stretch for a generation, right? That
Right.
didn't come because somebody didn't know. We will make it work. So, Jerry, my first question for you, and we're at 100 centennial. Was February 7th is 100 years of the introduction of Black History Month, right?
Okay.
So being that in February you and I are connecting, and I think for the people that are viewing this now, it's like, what is your legacy? You know, we
Right.
talk about death, the time that people are born and the time that they die. What's that dash in between and the impact that you had? Do people say, "Thank God he's gone," or do they say, "Oh my gosh, what impact did Jerry have?" So,
Right.
real quick, from a musician to the boardroom, how did you make that transition, or how do you
Uh,
maintain that transition?
yeah. So let me say first, like, really super glad to have you here. And like I said, I brought out a notepad. So I'm like, this dude's going to make me really have to think tonight about some things. But I want to go back to something you said. You mentioned imposter syndrome, right? And so it's a real thing, no matter where you are in life, right? What you've achieved, like, and I've done some time. I spent some time studying this phenomenon, because I know so many highly qualified people who not just qualified, but they're accomplished, right? They have a body of work that is massive, and then they still have those moments. And so when I was kind of reading through what you wanted to cover, and you mentioned when you said the word wealth, I like instantly felt unqualified, and then I had to think about it. It's like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah,
Right? Because but that happens so often, and I think that's one of the reasons why we don't drive ourselves ahead. Like, we can have an amazing idea, we can see the people that it's supposed to impact or impart something to, and then we come up with an amazingly logical reason why we have no business doing it.
absolutely.
Right? And that's a bit of the imposter syndrome. I mean, you haven't even talked to a single person,
Yeah,
and you have created an amazing argument for it. This doesn't need to happen, and then we sit. And so for me, it really has been, I think, part of the drive for me is just born out of curiosity, right? I
mhm,
really want to know how things work. I want to know how they're put together. And so when I have an idea, a dream or vision in my head, I need to see it become a physical thing. I needed to go from the inanimate to the animate, from invisible to visible. I need to see that, and then I get out there before I get a chance to stop myself, because as many things as I've done, oh, there's probably a longer list of things that people will never know about that I didn't do, right? And so that makes me so much like everybody else. It's easy for us to talk ourselves out of doing those things. The other thing I'll say is this, and I'm probably not even answering the exact question you asked, but I think for me, I understand that also when we have this sort of inspiration, I won't call it motivation, we have an inspiration to do something. When that
mhm,
comes, it comes with this boost of energy, right?
yeah,
And we're in that space where all things are possible. We can see it coming. And what I tell people is that's when you have to move. Utilize
yeah,
that energy. It's there for a reason. But what some people do is they get here and they start this and they get analysis by paralysis. Like, no, you should be moving to get some portion of it in front of you. Make it real, make it happen, because that energy is not going to always be there. And at some point, the vision becomes work, right?
yeah,
And that's a whole different set of muscles and disciplines to drive it. But people don't take advantage of that boost to get you that first 10 or 15% down the road. The other thing I'll say lastly, Ken, is I will publicize what I'm going to do to somebody.
Yeah.
And then I've
100%.
externalized the accountability, right? Because people's like,
Right.
and I know so many people that are not trusting either in themselves or others, so they don't share their ideas. They don't put out what they're going to do. I will put it out. Even some things I put on social media is so somebody can come back to me and say, "Remember, you said you were going to do that." Because I know if I leave all the accountability of even my dream up to myself, oftentimes it won't happen. All right, that's a lot
No,
of
I'm
words.
glad
Let me stop right
no,
there.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to poke on you about that because I think accountability is critical. Probably for me, I was an amazing procrastinator. But what you just said is something that I put in place. If I get the energy and the idea, I instantly, if it's someone I need to engage with, I send them an email or a note and I commit myself to the idea.
Exactly.
Because if we don't have accountability partners, it doesn't manifest. And to your point, if you get the idea that energy's there, it will die if I let it. And I'm
Right.
not looking for the accountability partner to bring it life, but just to hold me accountable so that I can bring it life. And I'll tie back everything that's in us, right? That I'll give you some scripture. The Bible tells us everything, He's given us everything that pertains to life and godliness. All this stuff is inside of us. Then I'm always realizing that what defeats me is this right here, me, right? So when you were growing up, because you said you were always been curious, did your curiosity create gaps from other people? Were like, Jerry's weird, right? He's so curious about stuff. He always wants to figure stuff out. Did that plague you as you were growing up?
That's funny. So I see. I think both my sisters are on. I'll let them answer. So I see a thumbs up. So I think people probably a little weird. But I've always felt like I was in groups, but not part of groups, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And growing up, we moved a lot. And so when you move into communities of kids that have, been together since kindergarten, and you show up in the eighth grade, the 10th grade, the 11th grade, like you're always the outsider. So a lot of my life has been, how do I fit in as the outsider? So I'm the person that doesn't feel like they have a home, right?
yeah,
Quite often.
yeah,
So I think that there was some of that, but there was always too this difference, even in language, right? Like where I was born, which is Kankakee, Illinois. Kankakee, Illinois has a lot of Southern transplants, right? People that came from the South to get factory jobs. So there's a lot of Southern influence. There's also a lot of Southern dialect. I never had it, right? And we lived in Detroit. There's a lot of, you know, that sort of dialect from that part of the country. I never had it. And then on the East Coast, the way certain words are said,
oh
I've
yeah,
never
oh
had it. And I don't know how that happened. And so I've always been different in that regard. But the curiosity was just me tearing up people's stuff for real.
yeah. No, I get it, and that's why I said it because I think sometimes we want to fit in, right? And
Hmm.
why would be created to be the same mold as somebody else, right? If we need, so go back as a musician, there's 88 keys for a purpose, right? It's for a purpose, and each one has unique. When you put them together, you create a good chord structure. And
All right.
not fitting in is okay. Sometimes hitting that progressive chord that doesn't work well for everyone works well if you work it. So it goes back to the what makes you unique. So I'm gonna go back to some of the stuff that need the courage. So with you enhancing Jerry over the years, what was your driver that kept you saying I need to keep? So I'm gonna go back when you got your FINRA licensing. That's not an easy thing. If anyone's done that before, it will make you go gray. The tests are set up for you to not pass. But what made you want to, in that stage of your life, go to another level?
I didn't want to do that. Did not
But you
want to
had
do
to.
that. There was no reason for me to do that. I was with one of the country's largest investment houses, and someone got the genius idea that all senior leaders needed to have this thing. And that was really where it came from. So it was almost a matter of survival. But if people, like you said, that is one of the hardest exams that you could ever take. To take it while you had, having that massive responsibility that I had to, that was
Yeah,
demanding 24 by 7, 365, and then try to fit in studying for the Series 7. Holy
yeah,
crap. Dude,
yeah,
I won't walk because it's such a crazy story. It could be its own little mini series. But I will tell you this, because I passed it the first time. I think I passed it on the number, but it took so much out of me. Like I knew people that got shingles studying
yeah,
for that. Definitely, I'm not going to say nervous breakdown, but they definitely had some
yeah.
episodes, all sorts of
100%.
illnesses and stuff from that exam. Because again, a lot of them, it was I have this responsibility trying to do this thing.
Yeah.
Dude, when I got done with that, I got in my car and I just wept. I had
Yeah.
nothing left. But I think probably the better is when I decided to go back to school, because I did 2 degrees in 2 years, right? Which sounds unbelievable. And someone's like, "Oh, the classes must have been super easy." No,
Yeah.
but I went back and I finished my undergrad in 13 months, and I enrolled the next minute I could, and then I did my MBA in 10 months. And so I did two graduations, one year and one the very next year.
Yeah.
That was hard. At the same time, I still played competitive golf. I was still producing music. I was still engaging in business. So I find systems and ways to get things done, and I can compartmentalize them. So when I'm doing this thing, it's the center of the universe. When I'm doing that thing, it's the center of the universe. And that's the reason why I can be so high output. I can systematize things easily.
So let me ask you, when you passed your seven, got in the
Mhm.
car and wept, do you think that was a catalyst for you to remind yourself that yes, you can do your undergrad and your MBA?
Um, well, I had done that before, right? And so I did those before I got the opportunity in St. Louis to do that.
Okay.
And so I had already overcome that. So what's interesting is at some point you get confronted with your own nonsense, right? And so I was at a point in my career in the company that I worked for. I was at a high enough level. There's more that I wanted, right? And they weren't giving it to me. We can talk about that. They weren't
Hmm.
giving it to me, but it was after the cancer, because that was my wake up call. Cancer
Hmm.
was my wake up call. And that's where the Live Free thing came from. That's where Principles of the Live Free Lifestyle, the book, came from. And it was really this simple understanding that, when you sit across the table from someone and they tell you you have cancer,
Hmm.
right? That's a big deal, because in a lot of people's minds, you just told me my expiration date when you
Correct.
told me that, right? And I remember sitting there, and when he said that, I had two thoughts in my head. The first was, because he said, "You have a little bit of prostate cancer," which wasn't true. That was a lie. And so for the first thought is, what does a little bit of prostate cancer mean? And then my second thought is, you have work to do. That was
Hmm.
it. Then I became an expert on cancer, right? My cancer. I
Yeah.
became an expert on all the treatments, and then how you like just I just get consumed in that way. But the point I'm getting to is, my course of treatment was radiation, and I never forget it. Laying on that table, and I tell people this: you face your mortality in a very different way. Any of us could die at any time, but laying on that table, this machine's going around buzzing and doing this thing, and I had a thought. I said, if this were to go the other way, people be sad, surprised, tell stories and all this thing, but eventually they're going to get back to living their lives. And for
Right.
many of them, I will just be a memory. And then the epiphany that really freed me. And it said, then why would I limit or not live my life the way I want over the opinions of people who will eventually forget about me?
Yeah.
That was it. Off to the
Right. That's
races. And that's what got me to address the school thing and all that, because I'm looking at it as like, I have all these people on my staff who have, undergrads and master's degrees, but they all work for me.
yeah.
I'm smarter than most of them. I'm certainly more strategic. I'm a much more effective communicator.
Mhm.
They work for me. I don't need that education stuff. And I talk myself out of it. But again, at some point, you got to face your own nonsense and be
And
like,
again, you faced it, right? And that goes back to
oh, yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
dash.
yeah.
You start and you're finished. In your case, is what drove us. This stuff was already inside of you. It just had to
Mhm.
be, you had to get to understand, like, wait a minute. I gotta live this now because tomorrow isn't promised,
There you
which
go.
goes back to talk about imposter syndrome. But then you
Mhm.
said something I want to tie back in finance and value. When you see your value, and the people that you work for or the business you create see the value of the business, then they pay you the value of what it's worth. So, for example, if you walk into the Mercedes Benz dealer today and you said, I want to buy your best car, they're not dropping the price down because you walked in.
Mm-mm.
This is what it's valued at. This is the napa leather. This is the sound, blah, blah, blah. It's priced at X amount of dollars. They're not going to reduce it for you because they
Mhm.
know the value of their product. And I'm gonna go back to what you said. That epiphany that happened got you to realize your value, your product value, and you got to put into action. And I think, and I don't want. I'm sure you have more people that are other than Black folks listen to your podcast, but I do want to focus on people of color because sometimes we forget that we have value. And
Right.
everything you talked about is our ability to create wealth, generate wealth, create a legacy, go back
Right.
and make an impact. And
Yeah.
we've always found a way to figure it out, right? We've
Right.
always found a way to figure it out.
Right.
And it's in us. So if you go back to your value, what made you in, let's say when you went to your broker house or it was a broker house, investment house. How did you help them? Because you're leading people that had degrees that you didn't have. Doesn't make you less than, right? Because your degree doesn't make you valuable. It's what you can do, whether you have the degree or not. But your
Right.
value, what did you do to make sure they saw your value? So one, they paid you properly and they rewarded you properly because they saw your value.
So one is to be as authentic and as possible in an environment that doesn't respect your authenticity.
Mm,
Right. And so my moments, my best moments were built with my team, the people who reported to me, the people who report to them, because Ken, I mean, let's keep it a buck. I mean, the company that I left in Exton, Pennsylvania before I moved to St. Louis, at that time, a company of about 325 people, right? That may have had, on average revenues probably only around 50, maybe 70. Well, a year and a half later, I'm in St. Louis. The total realm of responsibility I had between our direct staff and our contracted staff was about 325 people, right? And a budget of 100 million, right? It's a very big, very different story. But it's the little tidbits that kind of get you there, right? But it really was facing off with the people that I was leading because they were very highly suspicious of me the day that I showed up. They were highly suspicious of me when I was being interviewed. I had never seen this before. People came into the interview, they had my LinkedIn profile and my resume, and they had notes and stuff written all, they prepared themselves to have this conversation with me. And so again, you gotta have your knives pretty sharp, right? Because I'm not saying it
100%.
was a hostile environment, but nobody put a lei around my neck and said welcome, right? It didn't go down like that. But it really was building those relationships, and I had the pushback. I can think of one person in particular that I was not what he was expecting, right? And then let me for our people, the large majority of all the roles I've ever been in, I inherited a staff of people that have never been responsible to a person of color
Yeah.
ever in their
Yeah.
lives. And I should say, I would pay cash money just to hear their conversations at lunch and dinner, right? When they're talking about me. And so they're looking at someone, they don't know how to digest me because
Yeah.
I'm not the stereotype.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he knows what he's talking about. Oh my God, he may know more than me. Oh my word, he's so articulate. Like he can, like they wanted to trip me up, but they couldn't. And so those were some tense moments. And you talked about the value. I left places because they would not compensate me based on the value or my impact. Because every role I had ever been in became like a tailor-made suit. This is now Jerry's role. I can think
Yeah.
of a couple places that I worked that when I left, they either had to hire at least two people to replace what I did, or they had to say that other stuff we don't do that anymore. I took capabilities with me because I brought them there. I expanded those roles to fit the way that
Yeah.
I operate, the way that I think, the way that I move, the way that I lead. And when that was gone, they're like, yeah, we just don't do that anymore. They could have just paid me. I would have stayed. But I couldn't stay and look myself in the mirror, knowing that I have a family, knowing that
Yeah.
I've done nothing but help other people become richer, right? Because I've
Yeah.
always worked for privately held companies as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from the first to the last, there's sort of this thing is like, oh, we're really here just to protect and extend the wealth of one family. Okay.
Yep. Exactly. Which goes back to the point of value. When you
Hmm.
realize your value and you walk in the value bring, I'm gonna bring it to another question. Because if the employer, whether you're self-employed, even if you're self-employed, it doesn't matter. If you're selling a product and you don't see the value of the product, you're gonna have a hard time selling it to your client, which means
Hmm.
they're not gonna buy it. You no longer have a business. You're unemployed because you're out of business. If you're working for a Fortune 500 company or another company, they have to see your value and they'll compensate you because if they don't see it, someone across LinkedIn might and might make me an offer. But do you find that you have ever had to reduce your shine? When I mean your shine, it's the value add because maybe someone felt that he's too much. Sorry, just so you know, I have a 7:30 alarm that if I haven't worked out by 7:30, I didn't make sure I work out. So that's that keeps me
Understood.
on point.
Understood. So
But
the
but
question again is, ask the question again.
have you ever had to reduce your shine? So you go into an environment where it's like, ooh, they're going to be intimidated by it. I can say it. And you decided to reduce your shine, or do you keep on shining?
No, you have to manage your shine, right? And what I mean by that is I understand that in life I have multiple roles. Like even in this moment, as you're looking at me, I'm a husband, a father, a brother, a son, a friend, a cousin. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm all
Yeah,
those things. And so what you learn in these, especially in the larger corporate environments, I'm not the same thing everywhere. I
correct.
100% lead my household. I don't 100% lead this division. I might
Yeah,
100% lead my, my department, but I don't run this company,
yeah,
right? And so understanding that our roles are different, but then again, when you understand that oftentimes if you're really accomplished, people do not know what they're looking at. They're trying to figure it out. And so what I do know about me is my aura is 10,
yeah,
right? Some people can't survive when my aura is 10. I bring
correct.
it down to 7 so there's some air left in the room so they can breathe.
Yeah,
So they're
correct.
less threatened. So
Yeah,
they feel less exposed, right?
yeah,
They feel less uncomfortable. And that becomes the challenge is knowing, let me say it this way. In every situation, you are building social and political capital in those
mm-hmm,
spaces,
mm-hmm,
right? So your job is to bring on as much of it as you can because at some point you need to spend it, right? One way that you spend your social and political capital is when mistakes are made, right? You need to have something to offer up to cover for that. People who don't stay in those roles, right?
correct,
Because we've seen some
correct.
people make massive mistakes. It's like, how they not lose their job?
Yeah,
They had enough social and political capital, or if they had the advocacy of someone else willing to use their social and political capital to keep them
right,
in those spaces. You understand
right.
what I'm saying?
100%.
So, um, but it's also the way that you get the next yes,
Yeah,
right? In a situation is, do you have the social and political? And I want to make that easy for people. My political capital is largely based on the stripes on the uniform. This is my
mm,
direct authority to do or say or enact these things. My social capital is based on the relationships, how I fit into this particular cultural ecosystem, right? Who my advocates are, who my friendlies are, my allies. Is the way that we move through organizations building relationships to get things done. That's all social capital, right? And this is
yeah,
something I really should write about because I don't know that anyone's ever put it this way. I've used it that way. So I understand the difference and encourage people to have a focus on that is to build your social and political capital because you will need it at some point.
yeah,
So, but yeah, from 10 to 7, if I'm meeting with my staff, they're going to give 10.
yeah.
Other people, and it's not, I'm not cowering though, Ken. I'm not cowering.
No, no, no.
I'm understanding the
Yeah,
psychology of people. I'm
100%.
understanding culture. I'm understanding politics, right? And we have been very creative in how we've had to do those things. But I have to tell you, it comes at a price.
It does. It does. Right.
Okay, you know what I'm saying. Some people might not know what I'm saying, but you know what it comes with a price, and this has been studied, right? That us in those spaces, especially Black men, there are measurable tolls that are taken on that are taken on us psychologically, physically, right? It impacts our relationships because I put it this way. If you're at the lower level of an organization, and you're trying to fit into this culture and you have to put on the mask, if you will. Well, the time that you have to have that mask on might be limited because you're not around, you're not in the throes of that ecosystem. The higher you go up, the longer you have the mask on. Because the first thing that, and this is just me, please disagree with me, but oftentimes in these situations, what we have to do is to prove to other people that we're not a threat.
100%. I do agree with that. I agree.
Right.
That's why I asked the question, because
Right.
I think we have to balance that. I'm not diminishing the value add, but I am getting to the place where I can get in a door to have
Hmm.
influence. Because if I'm not on the other side, so if I come to your house today and you look through your peephole, you see it's me, you said I can't get in, I'm not getting into your house. So I
Hmm.
need to influence you somehow to unlock your door to let Ken in. Once
Hmm.
I get very comfortable, you let me in. Now I have influence. Like you said, I'm not diminishing. And I'm gonna use the word submission. I think people take advantage of the word submission as meaning weakness. Submission is the place of influence. So if I
Yes.
can be submitted to a leader and remind them that I add value to the team, they're going to open more opportunities for me. I'm not decreasing who Ken is. I might, to your point, go from a 10 to a 7. But when I get in that door, 10's
Right.
coming out. I'm going to
Hmm.
solve problems. I'm going to give insight. I'm going to bring team synergy. And then it goes back to I'm now adding value. What you defined was me creating an environment that I can be impactful without you being insecure. And unfortunately, someone's going to probably get stuck on what they see versus the value. The more they see my value, they get past what they see. Because like Jerry's gonna fix it. Jerry's gonna lead the team. Jerry's team's gonna be on point. Jerry can
Right.
manage $100 million overall book of business, right? Because it's like we can give it to him, he's gonna fix it. And it goes back to what I said before. We have always figured out how to get out the bag. We've always figured out how to make something from nothing. And what we're not doing is using that muscle in the finance world in our current state. And we're
Right.
relying on the system to say, Jerry, we're going to help you do this. However, you got to do these conditions first, but you got to live under these conditions. And if you don't, I'm going to stop helping you. When we have
Right.
always figured out how to do stuff, which is why I said to you, you haven't reinvented Jerry. You enhanced Jerry over the years. And what I wanted to pull out of you is we each can enhance ourselves.
Oh, without
One,
question.
back to your
And
song.
we have
I
to.
need the
So let me
courage.
just say, I think you're giving people way too much credit. I've seen people crash and burn because they want things to work the way they think it should go. But I'm like,
Yeah,
this culture and this ecosystem, this political environment it already has a set of norms and it's been in place probably for decades before you got here. So it doesn't matter what you think. And so when people go into a role new, this is one of the things that I tell them. Watch it like a movie till you can play it like a video game. Right. So what I mean is sit back. I don't mean not do anything, but
no, I got you.
be observant. Understand that things have a history. Don't look at what it is. Understand how it got there, right? Because you could speak up against something that just seems like it's out of place. Why are we doing this? But you may not know the other person in the room might have gotten their last promotion based on that. And now
Correct.
you don't have an ally, you have an enemy. So
Yeah,
people learning how to understand the history of how this thing became the thing. And then you don't have to take a hammer, right? Which is sometimes our method. You don't have to take a hammer to something to get to the next thing. You can recognize it for what it's done, its value and contribution, and then use it as a pivot to something that has improved or better. I don't have to destroy this in order for my voice to be heard.
yeah. So Robert Cialdini has the seven items of influence. So what you just defined is we have to leverage that power of influence. I can't come and say, Jerry, this is a bad idea, but it's my company. You're
Right.
going to fire, right? So you're saying you got to use wisdom in both aspects. Get in the door,
Hmm.
assess what's happening, but never get ego driven. I always think about the value in the product. What am I driving? What's the product? It can't be about Ken. What are we trying to build? And if I come in and I offend you, you're going to box me out again. I can't get boxed out. To your point, figure out who the players are, what's
Right.
happening, assess, and then what's your value add to the product. So
Right.
I'm a
And
zippy.
then don't be so binary. And what I mean
Yeah,
by that
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
it's
I
on,
agree.
it's off, it's good, it's bad, it's white, it's black, it's red, it's yellow. Stop that. Right?
Yeah,
Like I can show you white and we can agree that it's white. Then I can show you another white. We're like, oh, that's really white. I can do the same thing with black. So your ability to identify black or white means nothing. If you're going to be successful, you need to understand the shades of gray in between,
100%.
right? And so what I'm saying is people go into situations and they only have one way to process. So to them,
Yeah,
it's right or it's wrong. You're doing
yeah,
the wrong thing. I don't ever put people, because if I say to you, you are wrong, I've instantly put you in a defensive position.
yeah,
Instantly.
yeah,
How about good, better, best? And we can figure out where we want to end up, but I'm not going to tell you that it's right or that it's wrong. It's productive. It can be advantageous. It could be risky. Even our use of language kind of controls the emotions that are in the room, because these are still people, right? The, self-preservation is the first law of nature,
yeah,
right? You want to see some people come after you, keep telling them how wrong they are, right?
100%.
But you can honor and respect their position. Help them know that you do understand where they're coming from. We can do this, and that would get us this. But if we can, could you consider this, or how do we add on? And sometimes you don't actually get to the ultimate thing you want to do. You're getting just to an improved version of their thing. But sometimes that's all culture can handle.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
agree.
then you come back around the next time, and then maybe you have a bit more influence, maybe you have a bit more social and political capital. But this
Yeah,
whole thing of right and wrong, and it's got to be my way right now, that's one of the chapters in my book is right is not always right now.
right.
Just because you see it or understand it or think it doesn't mean that other people are going to arrive there the same way at the same time that you did, and sometimes they never get there. You ended up there by a set of natural consequence. It took every situation and circumstance you've ever experienced in your life to get you to that logical conclusion, which just as well be French to the person that you're talking to, because they're coming down a completely different avenue of understanding and experience. All right, let me stop. I'm getting
No,
hyped up. Let me
I
calm
hit
down.
that. I hit the nitrous oxide on you. Got you fired up. I love it.
Yeah, dude,
So
because I've
I,
seen so many people flame out on that.
I agree.
I'm like,
So here's the thing,
be
Robert Cialdini.
wrong,
There's
be wrong. If you can be wrong and win, you can be
100%.
right and lose the most important battles in life.
I agree. Right doesn't make it right, right? It's how do we win as a team? So,
Right.
because I said the principles of Robert Cialdini, it's reciprocity. People feel obligated to return favors, so that's part of this. Commitment to consistency. Am I consistent? Social proof, meaning that people look at others to guide their behavior. Liking, because if people don't like you, they're not going to let you in. Authority. People tend to obey figures of authority. Scarcity, meaning, it's like we only got 10 left. It's a buy one, get one free. And then unity. So everything you define are those principles. So we probably talk a lot about influencing. These are tools that we can use to influence people in the boardroom or in the beginning. You said something earlier about lower level. And I find the people that I talk to, we can't get stuck in just doing the same thing over and over. I'm just going to come in and punch a clock. All you are is someone that's either what they call either on track, you're just an average performer, they'll never promote you. How did you want to overcome that if you ever were there? Or as a leader, how did you stir that pot of people that maybe got stuck? After a while, you can't motivate them, but do you try? And what did you do?
Oh, so I feel like you asked two different questions
I did.
there. Okay, so ask the first one again, because I think
So the
that's
first one is,
super
were
valuable.
you
That's
ever in a
super
place?
valuable.
Were you ever in a place where you were just going with the status quo? You weren't motivated to do. You were working for another company. You just came in, punched the clock, and then you went home.
No, not really. It's not. It's
Okay,
not. It's
so
not. It's not who I am. I mean, I still and I've said this more in the last few months than I've ever said it. I think that problems are the new alchemy, right? If you want to be able to spin gold, step into the problems, step into the things that are inconvenient, the things that nobody else
100%.
wants to do, ideate around those things, create solutions, solve those. When everybody else steps back, take a step forward and say, I got this. So
Yeah,
a lot of my opportunities came from situations like that, where the thing that I learned from taking things apart and then how to put them, so I have a very systemized way of thinking. It has made me in the tech space, especially when I was a hands-on engineer, I was really, really good at problem solving. Right. And then I had actually a leader came to me one day and he's like, the way you do things now is you have everything under your hands like you're playing a piano, right? He knew I was a musician, right? So you have all the control, the combination of keys and the chords you're going to create. Said, but for you to really reach your best potential, you need to become the conductor. where you're now leading other people to do and play their parts. So I had to be able to translate that, right? And if you think about, some of our greatest athletes have made some of the most horrible
That-
coaches, right?
Correct.
Because they
Correct.
want people to do it the way that they did it. I recognize what other people bring to the table. I want to empower them, right? Because as a leader, my job is to provide you air cover and
Correct.
resources to do the best job that you can do. Right. This is so
Yep.
interesting. This is a leadership. This is like a leadership conversation. I haven't had one of these in a while. So this is
100%.
actually a lot of fun. But this is really the way that I did it with teams, and it's to recognize their effort. I never take credit for something that somebody else does, ever.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
came up with the whiz bang thing, then I'm putting them forward, right? Because I want them to get their shine. I want them to get their rewards. It doesn't make me look better to appear like I'm doing everything, right?
Correct.
I look
Correct.
good because I'm building teams that are
Correct.
effective and that can produce results. Not that I'm the genius behind everything. A lot of the people, especially in their areas of expertise, way more capable than I am. But I'm about the best big picture strategy guy you're going to get. And so I can even help them just to understand what to focus on and what to eliminate. But I never take credit for what they do. And when people see that you're going to give each person their opportunity, give them their shine, then you will get people that will go beyond 8 hours, and you can call them in the middle of the night
Absolutely.
and they
Yeah.
want to do, they want to
Right.
help, they want to contribute, because I always have the team philosophy. It's all of us.
Yeah.
And that's how I've
Right.
done it with teams. That's how I've done it with individuals. And I also recognize this: as a leader, an owner, a founder, if you're looking for 100%, you are wasting your time. 80% is more than enough for massive, massive success, right? If you try to close the gap on that last, like, I want everybody to do it this way and everybody, dude, I've had people on my staff that were really good at something, but you know what I couldn't do? Put them in front of another human being to say anything,
Yeah.
especially a client or a prospect, right? These are the people that are so capable, but we're going to slide food under the door so you don't starve, but we're going to just let you do that. And I had originally made the mistake of wanting all my people to do and act and behave the same. That was one
No,
of my mistakes in leadership. And it's like, oh no,
it's
you do
good.
this, you do this. Okay, let me stop here. This is where my Swiss cheese theory came from, right? So what we recognize about a slice of Swiss cheese is, how do we identify it? Because of the holes, right? I
Mm,
don't have to smell it. I don't have to taste it. As soon as I see a slice of Swiss cheese, I know exactly what I'm looking at, because its basic identity are the holes, sometimes small, sometimes large. And that's how we all are as individuals and as contributors. We're just a
yeah.
slice of Swiss cheese, right? No matter how much substance and flavor you have, oh, you have some holes. And so, as an individual, then we want to continue to grow and develop so we can close up those holes as best as possible. I don't think we'll ever close them 100%, right? But
Yeah.
when I'm building a team, now I want to lay the slices. So when I put one down and the other on top of it, and the next one on top, and the next one on top, when you look down from the top to the bottom, you see no
Yeah.
holes,
Correct.
because we all cover one another.
Correct.
That's the Swiss cheese. And if leaders learn that,
Correct.
they'd be
And
much better.
this is why it's a leadership call, because at the end of the day, everyone is a leader if you pick up the mantle, right? Because people can be a follower, but you're going to get to the
Mhm.
place you're going to get stuck. But you, either, to your point, you're not just a business owner, you're a husband, you're a father, right? You're a musician. Those are
Right.
what defines who Jerry is. But at some time, I might be the CEO of my own home. I might be the CFO. I might be the one that, makes sure everything works in the house, right? So I'm going
Right.
to have those roles. I have to take a leadership role. The question is, I can't wait for the pipe to continue to leak and think it's going to fix itself. I got to step up and address it and have a protocol to do it.
Right.
So I'm gonna pivot that to the finance part, because I think I don't know where we are for time, but money's
I
such a
don't. I
big
don't even
piece.
know. We might be getting close, but okay. So we can probably got another 10 minutes. But let me ask you. Don't change what you're doing, because I think that both my two of my sisters are on, right.
Uh huh.
So I'm curious from their perspective, and I see my best friend is on it. Like, are you guys learning anything about me you didn't know? Did you? Is anything come? They don't. They don't. I don't think they really. They've never seen corporate Jerry in action before. So I'm curious to see if they're learning anything out of this. So I'll give them an opportunity. But let's just go ahead. I'll get to talk to them later this week about it. And then
I'm gonna
somebody
pull
else said
back.
too about that the mask being heavy. I found that the mask gets heavy,
Yeah,
right? It gets hard to breathe, and then over time, it's almost impossible to take off. And I
yeah,
saw
I agree. I agree.
corporate me was blending into all the other phases, and expressions in my life, and that was not good for the other people in my life.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to get that together. All right, okay, let's go into some
No, but
finance
that's
stuff.
a good point because one thing, this is you, but I'm gonna bring me in. What keeps me balanced is the nonprofit work that I do. When
Mm,
I go to work, and I remind people, when I go to work, it's not personal, it's business, and I have a business function to do. So I wear those hats as needed. But outside of that, my normality comes in whether it's a musician, nonprofit work that I do that keeps Kim balanced. But I do want
mhm.
to go back to the finance part. Not that we can talk about finance in general, but let's talk about, you said in that one of your session about not having real estate portfolio. Debt is a good or bad thing because you can either use debt in a good way or use debt to be like the Joneses. But the challenge with debt, it can either lock you down and you can
Mhm.
never develop wealth. How have you dealt with managing wealth? Because you said earlier you didn't think you were qualified. Well, what country, what state are you in right now? Some people might say country.
I'm in Puerto Rico in my
Exactly.
second home.
Exactly. So again, one of the ways to build wealth in the United States is through real estate, right?
It's through real
It's the
estate,
one
right?
thing we're not building more of. There, you're not building more land, but real estate's another way you can have
Absolutely.
a tangible asset.
Mhm.
So tell me about that in terms of you didn't think you were qualified, but you have two homes. One, both in the
Well, I
U.S.,
have
one in
I
Puerto
have
Rico.
two
One,
homes, and I have some other doors that I own too, right? I have a triplex in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and I have a 7-unit apartment building um, in Belleville, Illinois. I mean, I got some crypto, I got stocks and bonds, I have other, I have stuff, right? I have assets, which is one of the things that's really making this period in my life possible, right? Because I have assets. But here's the thing. So to answer your question more specifically about debt, and that's why the thing that I put up earlier about oralguardian.com is like people need to understand the possibilities of what their money could become. Every single
yeah,
dollar, right? And if you understood that the dollar that you waste today is $100 tomorrow, the $1,000 that you blow, right, could be 10,000 or $15,000 depending on the vehicle that you put it in years from now. You think about it very differently. Also, if you understand, because I don't think they send them out anymore, but you used to get those Social Security statements where one of the things it gives you, at least from a
mm,
taxable perspective, is how much money have I earned? Well, there's very
yeah,
few people, even who've worked, what quote unquote, I don't say menial, but you know what I mean. But there's very few of us that won't have at least $1 million go through our hands, right? At
100%.
some point.
Totally agree.
So what are you doing with it? So when it comes to debt, and I started off bad, right? But the first place that was sort of mine, I didn't own it, but I was renting. I had to have everything, right? What was the way to get that credit? So I had to have the TV, I had to have the VCR back then, right? But you had to have it all because it needed to feel and look finished. And all I did was picked up a bunch of consumer debt, right?
Yeah,
And I learned the snowball method and got through that. So I was getting better, but I still didn't understand assets and what that really meant. And so I think that in general, if we are taking on debt for things that do not have a residual value, we can't consider them assets, then
correct.
bad, right? But if we take on some debt to purchase an asset, right, that will have a rate of return that exceeds
Right.
the debt
Yeah,
load,
yeah,
then we're all right, right? And this is what a lot of people do. It's called leverage,
yeah,
right? We're
correct.
simply
Yeah,
creating leverage. And even with real estate, and I talked to somebody about this, I guess this now last week about it, is like even with real estate, I kind of look at it one of two ways, right? I'm looking for one of two things, and in the perfect world, I want both, right? So if I purchase a piece of property, I want the cash flow, right? Right. And that's in some senses like if you understand like some businesses that bring on, we'll call them assets, people think that's how they make their money. It's not how they make their money.
Wow.
They exercise those assets to generate cash to operate the business. They don't
Right.
really make their money until they sell the asset, but because they bought it
Right.
at such a low price, they had
Yeah.
equity in it to start with. So then they can
Right.
put it back on the market, and that's where they really make their money, to exercise what
Leverage.
they. And so that's the thing. So if you get something, so if I buy an apartment building, I'm exercising it for operating capital. I'm able to draw cash from it, right? So the first thing I wanted to do is to be able to pay for itself, and then I
Yep.
want to be able to get a little ice cream money out of it, right?
Yep.
And then if I did it right, then it's appreciating, and so then when I sell the asset, I get more money out of it, right? And
Right.
that's one of the things I have to remind myself of. It's like I have so much more than I thought that I did, because I'm not. Oh, I don't think about it. I don't walk around thinking, yeah, I got extra money. I don't do that. I just do what I do. And so the debt thing is that is the killer. That's what it's modern financial slavery that
100%.
people have been so happy to just walk into because they're giving you a trinket when you go through the door.
Yeah.
When you look at people's closets, they have so much stuff, things that they can't wear, some that they've never worn. Why'd you have to have that? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you one of the worst things that I think that I did with my money twice is I bought two Teslas. I just one.
Oh.
I bought two.
Oh.
Right?
Oh. Oh.
Now, I I got it. Oh, let me put it this way. On paper, I made plenty enough money that it's like you can have that if you want, right? I can have that
Yeah.
if I want, right? I was doing all right. But then you think about what
Yeah.
could I have done with
Right.
$100,000, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. Now, part of again, the tech geek in me needed to have that, right? And I was looking at an SUV that I understood that the operating cost of having that SUV with those big tires that cost $800 to $900 a piece, and buying new brakes for it and all that sort of stuff, that if I was going to make that type of a purchase for $90,000, 105 for something that wasn't going to have that maintenance load, in my mind, that's logical. But at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of things I could have done with. Now, really, you're talking about $200,000,
Yeah.
right? Which easily $200,000 could turn into a million. You see
Easy.
what I'm saying?
Very,
Now,
very
that
easy.
don't mean I'm riding around on a unicycle. We're not doing that. So, but you get to make certain decisions about what things you're going to do. And again, that's why a tool like Oral Guardian, I want people to avoid some of the mistakes that I made, right? Like I think if I had understood it better, whatever I have now, I could have three times that. Easy, no question. If I understood it better, and now I'm looking at it at this stage in life, my biggest concern is people that I know that are in my friend circles, or one level removed, if you will. Like they're not ready.
Right. That's
They're
why I
not
want to bring
ready.
this up. That's why I
They're
want to bring it
not
up because
ready. And especially
people
the females, they are not ready.
and
And
people looking
that
to
one bothers
retire
me.
with a mortgage, right? You're retired with a mortgage still, and that means you got to still find a job because if you lose your home, you have no place. So how do we manage debt? And your message was if you stop creating bad debt, which is debt that's not tangible, debt that depreciates. Good debt is debt I can get some equity out of and cycle it again as something else or sell it. Because likely you're not going to sell your property if you got equity. You might buy more with the equity that's in the property and make it larger. But we've been taught I got to wear this, I have to do this, and the goal is to change that mindset so we're no longer the borrower, we're the lender, right?
Right.
Because that's a lifestyle shift. I don't need the latest gear. I can buy. Clarence is a friend of mine. Do you know Clarence?
No,
Clarence, Clarence, it's clearance. My
Clarence.
cousin Clarence, right? Because you can buy gear that's the last season and still be fashionable and not pay the full price, right? Because it's what do you do with it? And I find myself being very frugal. But let me tell you one thing, and then I'll pass it back to you. The influence that I have because either the FICO or the net worth is available changes the place you get access to, changes how they take care of you. You can walk out of a business and say, I'm going to pull my money because of X, and then they'll do something else. That's a different area of influence that we have to think about as a Black community, that when you have that,
Mm,
have an impact in a community where you can say, you need me. We have $1.7 trillion of money we spend around and can't show nothing for it.
right. And not enough. And I think that the businesses that we go into, we're smarter than that, right? But
100%.
we have this idea of solo success, which I think is a myth, right? But that is largely built on the lack of trust that we have with one another. I
Yeah.
know that you can build far more with more hands and more brains and more contribution than you can on your own. There is no
Yeah.
such thing as solo success.
No.
Everything that you're going to do, if you need materials, they have to come from somewhere. You need a customer, you need support, you're going to need things that are not you.
Yeah.
Learn to figure out what that is, get therapy or whatever you have to do. We have to learn to build community, we have to learn to build together. Like, we absolutely have to do that, or you're just wasting cycles, you're wasting your time, right? One of the things that we're wanting to do with Optivist, with our business, is, and I always say this, the rising tide raises all ships. There's very
Absolutely.
little that we do that someone could not participate in, either through an affiliate program, referral, or something, where they can get their piece of it too, because we don't have to have 100%. We want everyone to benefit, and what we really want people to do is understand what is possible, right? Which is not just what is possible in the world, but more specifically, what is possible for you.
Yeah.
That's a whole different question to ask people, right? Like, I've seen people cheer other folks on to their highest level of success, believing that they're not worthy of success themselves.
Yeah.
I can't stand that idea. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone is intended to stand under the spotlight and hold the microphone, but the person who's backstage helping to pull all the pieces together is just as valuable. So maybe you team up with someone who is a visionary, someone who has the courage, someone who has the access and the assets, and say, look, I'll be a part of it. What do I have to learn or do to be a part of it? Can you humble yourself? Can you submit? And then enjoying someone else's vision, knowing that that's not your role, right? Our next thing we're going to do, we really want to do this business in the box thing, helping people go from idea to first dollar as quickly as possible. Like, we have an entire framework to help people do that so they can see what is possible for them. All right. A lot of words on my
So
part. I'm sorry.
no, 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 you're good. So I don't know if you want me to, but so I have a couple of things. Legacy is important, right? Your dash is
Absolutely.
critical. Team development. Develop a team. We can't do this solo. Um, know your value, right? Know your value, know your worth. Shine. And then I'm trying to read my own chicken scratch. Lead and develop others, right? Because I think it's about the giving back part. I will say this. I don't know what we have for time, but when you said it about everyone has a part to play, I use this. I always ask this, and I'm gonna answer this question. I'm gonna shut up. What's more important for a meal? The silver spoon, the plastic spoon, or the wooden spoon? Which one's more important?
Wow.
Silver spoon, the plastic spoon, or the wooden spoon? You have your best person coming over for dinner. Which one's the most important? Silver spoon, plastic spoon, or the wooden spoon?
I want to say the silver spoon, but I got my best person coming on. I want to make an impression. I'm going to go silver spoon.
So I'll tell you what.
If I need utilization, I'm going with the wooden spoon. In a simple situation, I'd go plastic, but it's not going to be as durable. I don't know. Tell me the answer now. I think this is going to be good. I'm about to learn
So,
something.
so, so if we think about the chef, you don't want the chef tasting with the wooden spoon.
Oh, okay.
So they sample with the plastic spoon so they can throw it away. The wooden spoon retains the flavor of the dish, so they use the wooden spoon, but they serve with the silver spoon. So not neither spoon's more important. They're all valuable to the
Okay.
team,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
tried to
And I
find a
think,
place for each one of them. I get that makes perfect sense.
and the
Yeah.
key thing is everyone has a value part. The silver spoon might get all the glamour, but if the silver spoon tastes horrible because the food's bad, the plastic spoon, the wooden spoon have issues. And it's the power of the team. The team is what generates this. And I think what you
Right.
illustrated was that know your value, legacy, team development, uh, layers, shine. All that was super critical. And it's building the team.
Yeah. And for life in general at this stage, and I've been this way, like I said, the very first time I ever did a public seminar was in 1997. It was called
Wow.
The Leap Forward, because I've always had this thing where I believe in human potential. So like the whole, rent the hotel room, we had a room full of
Yeah,
people, did the
yeah,
guidebook and everything, that I wrote 30 pages, all, old school style. And so if anything, it's what breadcrumbs can I leave,
yeah, yeah,
right? It's the breadcrumbs. And again, what's possible? What can you do? Because I feel like I'm a lightning strike. Like there's so many other places I could be in life. I don't have to be doing what I'm doing. I didn't have to end up where I did. If you look at the early variables, there's nothing that said that I could be what I've become,
mm,
right? I should have been something else just based on the trends and what typically happens with people who come out of the situation that we were in. So I feel
yeah,
extremely fortunate. So I don't think that I'm so special. I know that I'm gifted, but even in that, I'm not special, right? There's a
mm,
lot of very gifted people out there. And so, what breadcrumbs can I leave? And then always leave myself open to the unexpected, the unpredicted, the thing that I could never take credit for, because there's been a lot of those things too. Like you mentioned, like as an accredited investor, like you can walk through doors that other people don't walk through, right?
correct.
But also, uh, if you really understand the power of relationships, like when I got into back in the real estate, right, this last sort of run that I went on, it was through relationships that all those the high ladders that everyone else was having was like, no, we're just gonna walk in this side. I'm like, the side door? There's a side door? Okay, let's go through the side. And so it has been through relationships, handshakes, someone seeing something in you or whatever the trigger is. Understand this is gonna be a tough one, right? And I'm gonna see how this hits you. One of the things that was really tough for me, it took me a long time to get to, because I was saying to myself is that I know that I have not achieved the level of success that I could.
Mm,
And I didn't put that question before anyone else but myself, right? Because who else could take responsibility for it other than me? And I went through this process. I won't drag it out, but it took about 6 months to get a solid answer. And it came out this way, Ken, that if you play by the rules, you will lose.
for sure.
And that hit me hard, right? Because my moral and ethical compass is like, you gotta do it this way and do it this. And but what that means is not that I'm ever in a situation where I want to take advantage, manipulate, or do harm to people, right?
Agreed.
But it's also to understand that some of the rules in society that guard success and accomplishment are artificial. They've been placed there by people who've accomplished it, and then they decided to put a roadblock to keep other people from getting to it,
Yeah,
right?
agreed.
And so if there is a side door or a back door that you can walk in it,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
If there's an advantage that you can get for yourself that does not do harm to anyone else, you better take it,
100%.
right? So if I know somebody who happens to know, hey, the auction is going to happen at this time, if you're in this particular city, you're going to be like, then you need to be there,
Correct.
right? But also be willing then to provide an opportunity to someone else down the road. Pay it forward then.
100%.
Right? It's
100%.
the people who get and then they want to hold it. The people who a little bit advantage, a little bit of a win, and they start building up high walls.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
that's your choice, but I don't personally believe in that because, like you mentioned a Bible verse earlier, and one that I think of often is um, time and chance happens to us all.
Mm,
Right?
mm,
You're not in control of everything that happens around you. And some things just happen to work out for you. You're never going to understand why. And some things seem to go against you. You're going to never understand why those things happen. But time and chance happens to us all. So even if you think you're doing all the right things, why didn't it work out? Or you've done none of the right things. And sometimes
right,
things work
correct,
out.
correct,
Put your
correct.
ego aside and understand that you're not in control of every circumstance. 8 billion
Yeah,
people on the planet. You think you can control the will and thoughts and actions of 8 billion people? No, and
absolutely
never.
correct.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, all right, I'll give you one more or two. Because people are going to watch this later. What else? What did you not get to? And we've been on here an hour and 10 minutes now, but what did you not get to?
So the other thing we talked about would just be we talked about imposter syndrome, but it's also having to be, you got to double up. You got to make sure you're always two times better than your opposite. And I say that I had a senior leader in my 3 decades of experience that, Ken, you make one mistake, you're done. I can make 25. And again, they didn't
Without
look like
question.
me, but they said this. So what are your thoughts on that in terms of you got to show up and be ready? You got to be show up and be, you got to show up. And then you have to exceed when you show up to maybe be considered as on par. What's your thoughts there?
Okay, so it is a, and the higher up you go, the tougher it is, right? That's just a reality. The other, and part of that is because you're going to have less camaraderie because you are likely the only one there, right? And in terms of really what that diversification truly means, and this has been studied, that until you get to 30%, it really doesn't make a difference, right? They did some, already did some studies with boards about this. Um, and so what that means is in the absence of that, especially when you're the only one, you don't just have the burden of how you behave and you produce and you deliver, you're now carrying that for your entire race, right?
Yeah,
And I've understood that. I call it the diversity tax,
yeah,
right? The one that you pay that I know if I screw up, the next 50 people may not ever even get an interview,
right,
right?
right.
And so the dynamic and the environment that I've been in financial services primarily, but I think it exists pretty much everywhere, is one, this idea that this ongoing gratitude that you're supposed to have for being in the position of the role, right? The second is a much smaller margin of error, the exact same thing that you said. Um, and I think with that, I'm trying to think of what the third is, or if it's kind of covered in that, between the gratitude, the margin of error. Like I said, Bob can go in there and pitch a fit and crazy, and Bob just had a bad day, right?
Yeah,
You can do that one time, and they'll be talking about it 10 years later. It's
right.
called the long tail. So the
Yeah,
smaller margin of error. Oh, I know what it is. The third one is, in order to get the same rewards, you got to do multiple laps. We want to just see if we really saw what we thought we just saw when we saw it. So do another lap. And so many times I have, not only have I met or exceeded what the people, you know, who were my predecessors did to get their next, increase or promotion. But then it's like, oh, well, we want you to go around, and then they change your role, and then you do this, and then you do the, and then it's like they
yeah,
keep resetting,
yeah.
the clock. It's those three things. And I'm, dude, I'm going to write about all of this in a book called Permission to Speak Freely. I'm just going to lay it all out from my experience, but I really want it to be more of an anthology, not just my story, but the stories of other people who
Mhm.
come from different industries, different levels of responsibilities, different cultures, different political environments. Because again, across different industries, they're very different. Like I know that the politic in healthcare is different than the one in financial services, which is different than the
100%.
one like I've been in the mobility space, or different than the one in R&D or manufacturing. They're very different. And then as a black man, right, a man of color, may be different than a woman or a Latino or something. So I want to be able to bring those stories together, not in a way that we've created this, this sort of this canon of gripes, but that again, that we're leaving breadcrumbs and clues to help other people navigate through the challenges that are that environment. And then the other, my hope is, screw that, build it yourself, build your own. Like again, it's a big
Yeah,
world out there, right?
yeah,
And if you have value, you have things that you can bring, right? Again, it's answering questions, it's solving problems, it's meeting needs. That's it.
yeah.
Do that.
Yeah,
Do
you said
that.
something that's critical, and I won't pose another question. We're over time. You said something about build it yourself. Back in the day, you could go next door and ask Miss Pat for a cup of sugar, and we had community. I think with all that's happened over the last 2.5 years, the last year for sure, it's saying instead of waiting for someone to solve it for you, you already have the solution. Be the solution. re-educate. If they tear down a mural that's historic, you're also the history. Tell the history. So it's like
Mhm.
we have to get back to a place that you are the solution versus waiting for someone to be a solution. So it's
Right.
self-empowerment. And I think that was part of it. We kind of talked, well, actually, we talked about a lot. Self-advocacy, right? You got to advocate for your brand and your value, and
Mhm.
don't diminish your shine because you're here for a purpose,
Right.
right? Make them breadcrumbs. Leave that legacy mark.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel it, dude. This is every bit as challenging as I thought it would be. Right? You see me here. I'm sweating, and it's not
Uh,
because I'm under the light. Actually,
no,
it got a little humid here tonight. We had a kind of
well,
a
it's
stormy
it's
day.
uh
I'm sure it's probably
it's
still like
17
84
degrees here.
degrees, but yeah, it's 84
It's
degrees
17
probably
degrees
still
here,
here.
so it's not
Yeah.
humid here at all.
So I just want
No,
to
but
see
I'm
if there
glad.
was anything in the questions that I needed to address. I don't think so. We were talking about the masking. Somebody said code switching, of course. Um, my sister says I miss you. Uh,
Somebody said Corporate Jerry is something else.
who's that? That's my MD.
Dana. There's Ron.
Oh
Ron
yeah, yeah,
Burrell's
yeah. I
what's
saw
up,
Burrell
homie?
show up. I saw him show
Yeah.
up earlier. Yeah, 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 yeah. So no, this has been great. Thanks for I appreciate you stepping up. I think I have three more of these where people said they wanted, maybe four if people wanted to do these, but this was good because I figured you would get to the stuff that you did, which I think is also valuable. I think the leadership piece. Um, it's been my that's been my great joy is the teams of people that I've worked with, the teams I've been able to develop. One of my former staff is actually on or was on. And that's kind of interesting too. Like even with Pivot Play, I've been so many people that I used to work with have found me on social media. When I was in corporate, it really bothered me, right? Because it's like I want that side of my life to be that side of my life. Like, it's like I do so many things, it's so easy to misinterpret who I am because I do so much, right? And they always, they want your total loyalty and like it's nonsense, right? I'm doing half this job with my hands tied behind my back. Cut it out. But that, and then what I've done in music, right? Like I said, we've shared the stage. Which as an MD, I'm not always easy. Was I easy to work? I'm not always easy as an
Oh,
MD.
no, you're fine. Oh, no, no. I've had worse. Oh, no. You're fine. No, no, no.
He said I had to
I've had worse. Billy Colburn is where I cut my teeth with. I don't know if you know Billy, bass player, the late great Billy
work.
Colburn. He was rigid. Pocket,
Yeah.
keep it locked in, blah, blah, blah.
I have
Yes.
brought some guys to tears though. They had it coming. Yeah, but then my other business interests, the fact that I write or that I, might take it, go somewhere and public speak or something like that. Like it's like they see you, but they don't understand. Like I am all of these
Yeah.
things, and I'm not
Yeah.
at my best. And I've also learned that when I'm not doing music in some form, I'm absolutely not at my best. Right?
100%.
Being able to live
Oh,
in that creative space makes
yeah.
creativity available to me in the other areas of my life, right? Is really super important. And I'm stuck down here now, so I'm doing all this AI Suno music and
I've
reviving
heard
old
you.
tracks because I don't even have a keyboard down here, right? So
You got to get them chops going. One thing I always share this with my wife, I'm like, that's not work. It's something about being able to get with musicians and have a conversation in music. It is it if you don't do it, you can't understand it. But it is another level of release, relaxation, and productivity. And it just makes you flow more.
right, yep. My
It's been
friend said
good.
a complex humor. Wayne is on here. Wayne
I
Pennington is
see.
on here. I see
What's up, Wayne?
my friend said a complex human I can be. So anyway, man, I really appreciate you doing this. I think that you got some stuff out of me. Hopefully other people got something out of it too. It's like, why would you let them interview you? Because I wouldn't know what to say sometimes. I want to know what
It's all
people want
good.
to know. Right. I have a deep well of stuff. I know a lot of things about a lot of things. So I want to be able to just leave the right types of breadcrumbs. But man, this has been special, man. I really do
No, you
appreciate
you
it.
nailed it, sir. You did a good job. Good job.
All right, so now I get to figure out. I think I want to do a little bit of where is it? Right here. Oh, you know what? We can go out. We can go out on some gospel. How about
Yep.
that?
There you
Let's
go.
do it.
That's where it
All
all
right, my brother.
started.
When the road gets rough and my strength runs low, when the weight of the world won't let me go, I remember whose I am, whose hands I'm in. Every battle that